Welcome back to the Partner Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience supporting Bryn through her first birth with Adelaide. And to give me the questions is Bryn.
Hey guys, I'm so excited. I have loved listening to these partner podcasts so much, and I was just looking over Richard's list of questions here, and I'm like giddy to get to ask them of him. So if you haven't, nominated your partner yet to share, we're going to be recording some new episodes soon, and I think it's worth it just to hear their answers. So I'll be sharing that information both in Patreon and in the Patreon Facebook group. So stay tuned for that.
And tell them that you don't need a whole lot of preparation. And my preparation so far has been, let's do this today.
Yeah.
So, I've been listening and thinking about this a lot, but not today. So we'll see. Hopefully these are my best answers.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go through these and see what we have the most time for. I think a lot of them will be really relevant to this episode because we're focusing mostly on that first pregnancy and birth. So the first one is, did you always want to be a parent? And do you have any role models for parenthood?
So, yes. Started for me when I was 15, I decided I really wanted to have a baby sister. And that over time turned into just wanting to be a dad and have a daughter.
Only child here.
Yeah. Only child. And I wanted that forever, it feels like. I do have some role models because I grew up in a split household, so I didn't have a father around, but I had 3 or 4 men in my life that did the yeoman's work, I guess, of teaching me how to not screw everything up as a guy. And also just being raised by my mom and grandmother for the most part let me know kind of my place in the things of the world, and how to be respectful and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
All right. So moving on from that, what was it like finding out that I was pregnant?
Huh.
And it also talks about, were we trying? Was it a surprise? That kind of thing.
I know, because it's been 10 years almost at this point. Well, it has been 10 years since we started trying.
Yeah.
And as I recall, we had decided, this is something we're going to do. And I think, was I starting school? And so it was either we're going to try, we'll just give it a go for the month of April or something, and then postpone again until, we were trying to time it so I wouldn't be actively in school, there'd be some break, right?
Yeah, we both had baby fever pretty hardcore, but it made the most sense for us to wait a year. But then I had come up with this plan that if we got pregnant,
it's winter break,
this one month, then I would have the baby during winter break, and we would have time because we were both I was in grad school, you were in law school.
Yeah, and we had been together several years before we got married, but we were in year 1 of marriage at that point, right?
Yes.
But yeah, and so then April comes around, and I'm pretty sure we were visiting a friend. Was it an engagement party or just a party? Anyway, we were having a real fun time in Atlanta, and we got pregnant.
Okay, but what was it finding out?
Right, so finding out. I feel was it Adelaide? Did we take several tests and it was really, really vague, or did you just come out and tell me?
I took a test early in the morning and I woke you up and told you.
That's what it is. Because I remember
this isn't fair. All the partners that don't have their partner to remind them of everything on the partner podcast.
Well, for me, the overriding thing I remember is the emotion of it, rather than the actual facts of it. And the emotion of it for me was just pure elation. And hope, there was part of me, especially early on. Well, I guess actually finding out, it really didn't matter if it was a girl or a boy. But, there was this part of me that was, tapping back into my younger self that was oh, man, here we go. We're doing the thing. Because for a long time, growing up, when I had these father figures, and I didn't mention this earlier, but, they kind of, because of the role they had in my life, like the thing that I wanted to be most was just a good dad. Because I didn't have that, but I did see what that was like. Mm-hmm. And so, like the profession, whatever profession didn't matter so much. Because I like to learn. I don't really particularly mind what it is that I'm learning about. But like what I wanted to be was a good dad. And so that was amazing to find out.
I feel like that's such a good point for a lot of us to keep in mind. The person that's getting pregnant and finding out first sometimes. And like, I always hear these elaborate stories of how they feel like they have to tell their partner in a special way. But for you, it wasn't the way I told you. It was like how you felt.
Yeah.
That sticks with you. So something to keep in mind when you're like stressing about finding the perfect way to tell the person, which I don't think I really ever worried about. And then with our third, I wanted to do something cute, but anyways, all right. So did you have any expectations about the pregnancy? Did you feel like you were going to be super involved in that part of it? Did you read any books, that kind of stuff?
So I knew I wanted to be super involved. And I think pretty early on, like you had like a pretty strong feelings that you wanted to not be in a hospital.
We had watched The Business of Being Born, I think, before we got pregnant.
That? Yeah. And I remember just being like, you know what you want, and I'm just going to support that. It wasn't ever really a question for me. But I did want to be involved. And the nice thing about that, and I guess that was probably talked about in Business of Being Born, is like how different the midwifery practice is in terms of including partners and everything. And then I read a few books. I was not on top of things. I did. I was not as on top of things
you sat
as
on your nightstand.
I thought I would be. And a lot of it was like, I would read a few chapters and it was either like condescending or, is condescending the right word? It was all like, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. You don't want to know anything, but here's some things that maybe you should learn, you caveman. And I was like, But I did read a lot of birth stories and the Ina May thing.
You read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth?
Not the whole thing, but I read a ton of it. I read The Birthing Partner. Is that what it's called?
Because I don't think I've even read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. That's like my secret confession. No, everybody recommends it on the Birth Hour, and I've never read it.
Because our first midwife, Jennifer, had a bookshelf of
She did. She had a lending library.
Things. Yeah,
she gave you a stack of books.
Things, and
I feel like she gave you a stack of books, and you were reading law school books the whole time.
Well, that was a lot of it, because that was like, I hadn't been in school for 5 years, and law school was, and I got to keep up with the young kids. But yeah, I was like, I probably got like 30 pages in on a lot of books, and I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. But I did a lot of online research and watched a whole lot of videos, and yeah.
And we did this next question is about finding your care provider and like just the care you receive. So I was going to ask you about the childbirth class that we took with our midwife, but in general, like the midwife search, I feel like you'll have some interesting things to say about that.
Will I? I mean, so I think this was with the first.
It was because we had no choice with the second.
Like one very nice midwife who was like pretty far out in rural Arkansas that had like a big thing with Lord of the Rings and stuff going on in the house, and it was just like not quite the right. It was like a little bit too much like wizardry going on. It wasn't quite the right. It was like a mixture of like Mima's house with like the really awesome like, farm table stuff with like a lot of chicken iconography, which I love. I love it. But then like anyway, it just wasn't like quite what we were looking for. And then we like saw someone that was awesome, kind of on the other not other end of the spectrum, that was like very, very like flowy and like almost mystical in a lot of ways. Really liked her, but we found the person that we ended up going with, and I really appreciated this. She was very like, she was very pragmatic, I guess is the right. I mean,
she had like a science background, bachelor's in biology or something.
from like Vanderbilt. Like, I mean, it was like super like for me, and that was just like, oh wow, you're like really smart, which a lot. I mean, people are. It's not anything, but like I was definitely immediately drawn to like the degree that she had, and then also her practice, and then the way she was very frank, very forthright, and talked to us. She's like, look, we're gonna, like the midwifery practices does it, A, B, C, but like if something comes along and you need some medication of some sort, like I'm gonna give it to you. Like I'm gonna recommend this. We're not gonna, rely on the energy of the
herbs
universe
or something. It was like,
only.
I don't play. Like if you're hemorrhaging, you're getting the shot of Pitocin kind of thing, which I ended up needing.
Extremely important for Bryn. Yeah, no, it was extremely important that we had someone that was competent in a lot of different ways. Yeah, she was like the happy medium, and the second person you mentioned is someone that I really love and respect, and have friends who used her as a midwife, and we used a lot of her herbs, and it's Birdsong Botanicals. I recommend her postpartum bath all the time. But I think especially as like first time birthers, we were. I don't like that. Is birther the right way? Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. But first time parents giving birth at home, like planning a home birth when we knew no one in our personal lives that had one. We were the first. We weren't like no one else in our friend group had kids, and I had a buddy, like a really close friend in med school that was like, bro, this is insane. Which kind of swayed all my friends in the same way. They were all like, this is nuts. Like how people took the fact that we were having a home birth, at least on your side of things. Yeah, it was tough because it was like the friend, like my three closest friends are all smarter than me, and they're great in their field, they're well educated, and they had their heads up their butts about this. It was one of those things like a buddy in med school learned what he learned. He's an excellent doctor. As far as we know, like we've never witnessed. I've done the background on him. He's an excellent doctor. Okay. He's not an OBGYN. He's an ER doctor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just asked him recently. I was like, do you do many labors in the ER or many births? He's like, no, we send them right across the street. No, he's a GSW doctor. He's like light bulbs in the rear end and gunshot wounds. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so from that perspective, he was like, there's no way you should do this. This is unsafe. And I was like, I hear what you're saying. I know you have the education. I just want to throw this out there that, like, we've researched ourselves. We've read their journal articles, looked at the actual statistics. Like, we've done a serious deep dive on this because we're, like you, we are very concerned that we're, about the health and safety of our children. And this makes sense for us. And so he and I basically just didn't talk for a year and a half, and it was tough because like my other my kind of brother figure growing up, he sided with the other guy. He was like, look, I get it, I love you guys, I trust you, like I hope this is the right thing. I'm really nervous for y'all. It seems crazy, but like I know y'all are in, your hearts are in the right place, kind of a thing. Like our heads aren't, but our hearts are. But ultimately, he was like, "I trust the doctor, right? Because he's a hero. Of course, you trust the doctor." I get that, but so it was really hard. It was really frustrating because on top of that was like Bryn's family. Like, did we even tell? We didn't even tell them, right? Like, we didn't. Well, we told my mom. We didn't plan to tell my dad and stepmom, but my best friend back home used to babysit for my little sister, and she basically let it slip, and that's how they found out, which wasn't great. And then they had all the exact same comments and opinions basically as your doctor friend, and we basically didn't talk to them for a year and a half. Really hard. It was really, really hard not to have that family support or friend support. Because it feels like how did it feel to you? Oh, yeah. I mean, it felt like, so there was part of it felt like a bit of abandonment, but really it was like, you've trusted my judgment in like all these other ways in life, but on this, there's no give and take, right? It's just like, it's kind of like they're washing their hands of it a little bit, you know, like if anything had gone wrong and then we had, you know, we lost a kiddo, they would have been like, I told you so. They would never in a million years have said that, but it would have been an undercurrent forever. And it's just, and it is so frustrating because the evidence would not have supported their judgment against us. Like, it just wasn't there. There's a lot of fear and hype about, I mean, less so now. I feel like even just in the last 19 years, a lot's changed, and it was changing even then. But it was really frustrating. It's like feeling like you're being unfairly judged, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. For me, it was like, don't you think that I love this baby as much or more than you do? And why would I choose something that is not safe? I've done my research. Of course, I'm making the right decision for us. And then all the other stuff you said, I agree. I told you so fear and stuff, which is part of, which we'll get into later, part of why we really didn't tell anyone, you know, when I went into labor and stuff like that. It's like we were just kind of holding our breaths a little bit, even though we trusted our decision. We didn't want to spread the news that she had arrived until we could assure everyone that it had been a safe delivery, and that's crappy.
Yeah, that's really crappy.
All right, so let's see. I'm going to skip over this next question about taking a class.
We did it. It was awesome. We got to see women in Russia give birth in the middle of whatever insanely cold sea there is. That was so fun.
What's your favorite memory from the childbirth classes we took? They were with our midwife once a week for what?
Favorite memory?
4 weeks, 5 weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that stands out to me most was this video that we watched of a woman giving birth, and she was in a deep, deep squat. And the baby came out, and she immediately started counting fingers and toes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's pretty righteous. That's awesome. Yeah.
Do you remember Jennifer acting out what postpartum would be like? That's what stands out to me the most.
I think so.
Our midwife, pretty sure she put a robe on and do you remember this?
I'm starting to vaguely. Yeah.
And the pads and she just tried to illustrate.
Oh, yes.
I wondered if that would stick out in your mind at all after.
No. I can't believe it. But when you're jogging my memory, I vaguely remember that, and that's right in line with her character. She's just,
it was basically an SNL
put herself out there, and she's
skit of postpartum.
Funny. Very, very funny.
This is what it's gonna be like. No one's gonna be trying to win any sexy awards.
The Pampers and stuff, and the pack and the pamper. Yeah.
And carrying around the Perry bottle and stuff. Okay, so we're moving into the actual birth here. So, what was it like just watching and being a part of the birth and kind of well, let's start there.
So that was, it's really hard to put into words all the different feelings. It was one of the times in our relationship for me that I felt the closest to you. Because there was this really, part of it was just awe-inspiring to have this vague understanding of what's going on and seeing you go through the contractions and everything. For one, it was really long, and so there was this
34 hours.
Yeah,
if anyone's counting.
You started having some contractions, and then we're okay, this is starting to happen. We'd been walking hills, walking the neighborhood, doing squats along every other curbs, just did the black and blue I say we. You did the black and blue cohosh. We had some sex. We did all the stuff. We had spicy food to try to get Adelaide coming out, because she was 14, 15, 16 days past due, which is, again, was fine. Everything was on the up and up with that. But, so the day of that we were supposed to go in for the non-stress test, right, and get induced, basically, we thought it was going to happen. Anyway, but being a part of that was...
We'd already, just to clarify, we'd already done non-stress test. It was the biophysical profile that we were scheduled for it that morning, and I went into labor the night before.
Because it was like 42 at the
It was 41 and 6 or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so we had one night of sleep where we would sleep for about like 15 minutes. You'd have a contraction, we'd wake up, I'd put some counter pressure on, like the two things that like stand out in my memory for like the labor, like pre-delivery, like the labor part of it was applying a lot of back pressure or counter pressure on your lower back, like every bit of my strength that I had. And then the other part was I would stand there, we'd face each other, and you would like hang from my arms in a deep squat. And I have this like distinct memory, and I think I've probably shared it a couple times on this podcast and the other, of like at one point laughing to myself because I was like, I'm just about out of physical strength. Like I had nothing left, and like you had hours to go. I mean, it was like the reservoir of energy and strength you had to draw and was like immense compared to what
it's
I
like
had.
You better have more.
I was bringing
in you.
Nothing to the table. And I remember just laughing. I was like, why is it that she's hanging here? It's like, I mean, it was like just completely confounding me. But yeah, it felt like we had some like rhythms, and it was just like a really interesting, like, not interesting, it's not me a word, but like the right word was like, I remember having this like very like intense focus on your well-being, and I was like trying to parse out like every moan and every move of your hips and like shoulders and everything that you needed. But yeah, I mean, there were parts of it too that were like, they got comical, like we had the cats trying to climb through our window. We have 2 outdoor cats, and they're hearing us.
The window screen right now. We should probably close the curtains.
Thanks a lot, cat. But the comical parts were like, one was just me running out of strength, and that was like 20 hours in. And then I might be giving myself more credit there, actually, than I deserve. But the other was you wanted to get in the water, and that was like, it was a ridiculous situation because the water had gotten cold, and it was December 31st in Northwest Arkansas, and so like we weren't getting any help from the outside, and so
our water heater sucked.
Yeah, our midwife's like boiling water, like bringing it in, dump it in, boiling water, bringing it in, dump it in, trying to like do something. I don't think it ever really got remotely.
It got
did it?
Bearable. I mean, because I got in.
Yeah, you could get in and like get where we were pouring, and it was like a few minutes hot. But yeah, I remember like that was an interesting part of that too, because I remember like you have like a little bit of like poop floating in the water and like all these things.
You've never brought that up before. No.
It's like a tiny amount. But the point being is that there were all of these things.
Were you in charge of the fishnet at that point?
Yeah,
oh my God.
For sure, with birth. And it was like, there was no like, factor at all. It was just like all these different ways that bring you closer and closer and closer. And
poop in the water.
A little poop in the water.
Bringing you closer.
And yeah, I mean, it was just, there was such and part of it too, I think, was like Jennifer's presence. She wasn't like super active the whole, like for most of it until the end, but like just, she had a very like calming, like, this is just like, we're, I don't even know the right word. It was like, I mean, pragmatic comes to mind, but it was really just like, kind of like, this is just how it goes. Kind of feeling with her.
Safe with her.
So safe.
Like she just slept in our guest bedroom that night because we just wanted her close by, even though she only lives 10 minutes away.
Yeah. And it was a very much just like, this is how we do it. This is what we're doing. This is the way it goes. Everything's fine. And it was, but it was just like having that reassurance and that strength there was really nice too for me.
Okay, hardest part and best part of watching or being a part of the labor.
So the best part for me was like watching you hold Adelaide for the first time. But that was also like, and just having like seeing Adelaide come out was, she did not. Well, she came out slow, and then she came out hard and fast at the end because you were on this like torture device looking birthing stool, pushing way too hard. And And because initially I thought I want to catch her, but she came out like a rocket when she finally did.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing you holding her and she was just there, and like that was probably the best part. But then like that was closely followed by the worst part for me, which was postpartum, like having to get I'm blanking on the word. Placenta out. It didn't all come out. Thanks a lot. And so you had to have, was it oxygen too that she gave you a little bit of? And Pitocin, a little bit of oxygen, because you had some that was still inside of you. And so I got behind you, and then you were in my arms, and Adelaide was in your arms. Were you holding Adelaide through that?
I think I might have handed her off to you because it was a little bit, because it was so intense. Painful. Yeah. And
then our midwife had to like put her forearm into you to scrape out the rest of the placenta, and then you gave this, and you had started losing blood, like quite a bit of blood at this point, and you screamed in a way that, for a moment, I was like, okay, it's gonna be me and Adelaide. Like, there was this moment of like really, really deep, like primal fear. However, I didn't see any of that on our midwife's face. She was still totally all about the business, even given the fact that, like, after enduring this, Bryn kicked her pretty darn hard, right? Like,
I was kicking her really off of me because I couldn't control it. It was too painful. And
throughout all of that, like, I didn't, for me, see, and I was looking at Jennifer for guidance too, because like I didn't see a moment of like wariness or worry or like confusion. It was just like she was very like, this has to be done. It's going to be painful. Like, it's going to be worse than the birth. We're going to do it, and it's going to be fine, But oh man, there was that moment. Like it was a different scream than any sound you made in labor, and that was.
I remember you saying that it sounded like Jack Bauer in 24, like
Did I
being
say that?
Tortured. Yeah.
Yeah, which
we had watched
it
like
is, like we
recently.
had watched a lot of. But that was primal. That was like that like pulled at something deep within me that was like, it started like a bifurcation of myself as like a husband and father versus like just a father. I was like, okay, I've got all like, I don't know. It was like it brought some kind of like something into focus for me. It was like you got to be ready to go on. It was terrible. But it was a moment. It was one moment, and that was the worst part.
That sucks.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
What was your worst moment?
That was my
worst
moment.
Your worst moment too.
That was rough, and then also being stitched up was rough. But at least I got to hold Adelaide during that, and I remember just like snuggling into her face and like. I
remember for when you were getting stitched up. I remember being like, "I don't want you to look. I don't want you to look," and I was just like, "What? Like this is." There was part of me growing up that I remember, like, because I used to watch the Operation channel, whatever it was that came on, like, PBS, and I was just like, this stuff was awesome. Let's go look at what a heart look, But, like, and then the other part was, like, I don't know, there was no part of it that that made me think, like, looking at you getting, stitched up. It took a few stitches, right? Like, I feel like it was like...
It was a lot of
14.
stitches. Like, inner, outer...
Yeah, you had some tearing.
I was torn up. Pretty good.
And, but seeing that, like, I mean, and I don't know if it was just, like, Jennifer's present or whatever, but, like, I had there was, like, a complete separation of, like, seeing your vagina be stitched up and, like, any concern for like a future sex life. And I feel like that was what part of your concern was. Like, I don't want you to see this.
I think for me it was like I wouldn't want to see it, so I don't want like my most intimate like relationship partner to also see it.
Yeah.
And just for context, it's not like I was just worried about him being in the general area. She was having him hold the lamp.
Oh, and I had a great lamp for it too. I had an OT light. She was, that bright white light.
Because she was used to having an apprentice.
Yeah.
And her apprentice had just recently had something happen and wasn't any longer with her practice.
Yeah.
And so it was just her, and like my birth was one of those births where she really could have used an extra set of hands. And so I'm sitting there holding our newborn daughter, and Richard's holding the spotlight on my torn up vagina. And so then, I was like, don't watch. Like, it was too much for me. But no, I don't think I was like really thinking about like sexual stuff later on. It was just like, that's like one of your most intimate parts, you know?
I thought that was what you were concerned about, and I was just like, that's not
about like whether I'd be tight enough or something.
No, just like the visual of it. Like, will you ever want to, like, you know?
Oh, like, would you ever be interested in this again after seeing it?
Yeah, I thought you were thinking that, and I was like, this is not even like, it's two different conversations.
Yeah, I don't think I was quite. Who knows? But I don't think I was quite to that point. I think it was just more like,
right.
So, let's see. Was there anything that stands out to you from the birth that you don't think I would remember, but you remember?
Oh. I don't know at this point.
It's been a decade.
It's been a decade. There wasn't a whole lot, like, going on that you and I weren't immediately part of. I don't know if you were aware of, like, the constant boiling of water. I know Jennifer probably had some stuff going on that she and I talked about that, just like, you know, as an aside, that had nothing to do with like your health or safety. That was funny. I mean, I was supposed to be recording this entire thing, and that did not pan out.
Oh gosh!
Thought I had it recording the entire time,
the birth, and it died.
Died. Super awesome. No.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of people that come on the birth hour talk about how life-changing giving birth is for them. How do you feel about the experience, especially with our first birth? Is it something you still think about, or is it just kind of like the start to fatherhood and you're more focused on the roles you played now as a dad?
I still think about it a lot, and most of it is in the context of like the times when our kids are just, and in particular Adelaide, when we're having like behavioral issues, or she's just fed up, we're all fed up, and you know, she just has like a screaming fest or whatever, or the times when I'm like just particularly hard on her and it's not really warranted, or like I raise my voice. Like, I have a very loud voice and it's very intimidating, and I don't like, it's hard sometimes to realize, like, even if I'm trying to keep my, like, I'm not like particularly angry, but like keep it in check, and I just feel like, oh no, like I'm being too hard on you right now for something that's like really not that big a deal. And when I'm reflecting on that, I'll start to think about how like you're our firstborn, like you were the one that like when you came into the world, like I felt like my purpose had been kind of like achieved in some really meaningful way. And so that helps like center me, thinking about Adelaide and thinking about, you know, I put on her first little outfit that we've used for all three kids, and like what a ridiculous struggle that was.
How delicate you were.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was a gown, like literally just one head needed to go through.
Yeah. Oh man, it was just so like everything was so delicate. Like I never trusted that she was breathing enough or any of these things. And like since day one, there's always been this like feeling of, you know, like don't like, you know, put out her fire. Like she's very headstrong, very assertive, and like it's fantastic. And it's just like those are those times when I feel like I'm like failing her as her dad if I'm being too hard on her about something. Like we're kind of on a homestead right now, and like she got up one day and like fed all the animals and like did everything, but like she wasn't ready to go to school on time because she was too busy like being a rock star in this other area. And I was like, just focus. I was like, hey, next time get ready first. And didn't give her like the validation, didn't recognize like what she had just done for the family. And like in those times, like that's when I'll think about it, and then kind of recenter.
Okay. All right, so we're kind of running low on time here. The next section is kind of all about postpartum. I'm just going to skip to like advice. Like, what advice would you give as far as supporting your partner during the postpartum phase, and maybe touching on a little bit of like bonding with baby when that happened for you, that kind of thing.
So the bonding happened fairly quickly for me. We had I was kind of overwhelmed when she came out, but that hasn't been the same with all three of our kiddos in quite the same way. Postpartum, I think for us, I think just what I would say is you've got to guard your space and make sure everybody knows that like they're welcome to leave food, send their love, but like stay away for a while. That's not really possible for everybody with, jobs and whatnot, but to the extent you can, alleviating any responsibilities on your birth partner, and just making sure to kind of guard your privacy as long as possible. And then we found it helpful because like as far as like nursing and stuff, I tried to make sure to get up as much as possible as I could, to help, bring Adelaide to you to nurse. And then, changing diapers and stuff, just because it seems like the more you can take on those tasks that are small, but like, over time are just like really annoying, I imagine, rather than just snore. So
yeah, I think there's two schools of thought on that. It's like some people I talk to, they're like, I want my partner to get the rest they need at night so that like they can
that's true
help during the day or go to work and that kind of thing. But for me, it was like, I'm not like, I need my sleep. I'm not a morning person, and being awake every 2 hours was very difficult. And I think if I had been doing that alone, I would have sunk into a very dark place. And so even if it was just for 5 minutes with you coming to with me, and like recognizing this baby is awake again, and changing a diaper if needed, or simply just holding her until I was ready to get my boob out, that like teamwork aspect, and I've talked about this before, was just so important for me. But I know it's not the same for everyone. I've talked to friends who feel differently and would rather just kind of power through the evenings and make sure their partner gets like a full night's rest and they're more helpful the next day or whatever. But
yeah,
you had also been kind of used to lack of sleep with law school and stuff like that, so
yeah, it was in my wheelhouse.
We were
so I guess
prepared.
To modify it, just whatever the best teamwork is going to be.
Totally.
You got to be there.
Talk about
do
it.
Talk about it. Yeah, communicating is super important.
But I feel like you just knew that that's what I needed, or else you just wanted to be involved all night long because we didn't ever talk about it. That's
true.
What you did. And you're a pretty hard sleeper and a snorer, but I never had to like really shove you awake and be like, help me,
Yeah.
You just kind of did.
Yeah.
So that was pretty awesome.
I spent half the night terrified she was not sleeping.
That's true. You
or
were
not
on breathing watch.
Golly, that is just the worst.
And I'm glad, like, I didn't really worry about her not breathing.
Well, because when you feel like you put it like a finger on her chest,
Their
like,
chest
you gotta be
doesn't
careful
move a
because you
lot.
don't want to wake them up. So it's like, how do you do that just right? I don't want to wake you up, but you might need to wake up,
But I never had to worry about that because I knew you were on watch. And then later you would be on pacifier watch where you guys had this like system.
Had it down. I could sleep with my hands in such a way it would hold her pacifier in her mouth, or at least put my hands in a position where if she spat it out, she could put it back in.
Yeah. On that note, like, how did you feel about co-sleeping?
I was worried about it at first because I'm a big guy. I will say though that like when we did that, like we like made the area flat all around her. We like did not drink anytime remotely close to bed. Like there was nothing that was like in our bodies that was going to make sleep like take away extra alertness that you might have. And so like I remember, I was just like alert at all times. It felt like I slept very lightly while she was young, and just I think we were. Anyway. So I started off being really worried about it, but loved it. Like absolutely loved it.
You did. She used to like play with your hair.
She would play with my hair to go to sleep, and that was like daddy crack. Like I loved it
so much.
And when she stopped, I was like, "Come on, just."
And one of our other kids like didn't do it. I think it was Harvey.
I was like, maybe
you were like you were like a dog, like trying to put your head towards his hands. Like, come on, you want it.
Yeah, it was it's such a like lovely, like funny little thing to do. Just like going to sleep, curling your hair. It's fun.
All right, we could probably talk forever, but I don't know. Do you ask this every time? What's the funniest thing you remember?
I don't. Usually because if there is a funny story, someone's
already
like
told it.
They've either already told it, they're like waiting for it.
Do you have any?
I don't think we have any really.
I think we have a really good one when we get to Harvey's, because it says funniest thing you remember from either pregnancy, birth, or those first few weeks with a newborn.
Oh yeah.
Harvey has a really good one, but I can't think of
any.
What are you thinking of? Well, I'll save it for his.
Oh, all right.
Teaser, guys. We're gonna do all three kids.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
All right. So, any final words of wisdom or resources that you would share, especially for a first-time partner?
I would say read like the birth partner. What's the one that's like the you get certified as a birth partner. What is that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Wow. So the deal is like, I would read birth stories. Actually, I would not. I didn't really get any like helpful things from general books for dads, because these days, as far as like the timing of things, download an app. Like you're gonna always know what's going on, and that's gonna like buzz your pocket, so you'll have that.
What app? Like, did you have a week-by-week pregnancy app?
Yeah, I did one of those ones where it was like, is it a bean this week? Is it going to be a cantaloupe later on?
I didn't even know you had that. I thought I was just updating you.
No, I had one too. I didn't have the same one you did, though, I don't think, because I remember at one point it was like a peanut versus like a snap pea or something. But like that thing would be good. I don't know. A lot of videos about giving birth.
The business of being born.
I like the business of being born a lot. I think she's doing another one now. Trying to think of what else there would be. Yeah, I would look into different techniques for alleviating pressure and pain, like counter pressure, different birth positions, that kind of thing. And then also, I would look into resources. I mean, really, the Birth Hour website probably has a lot of this as far as like
options childbirth course.
Yeah, but in terms of like how to ask questions of care providers and be an advocate, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that you, like with us having home births and midwives, you didn't really have to like go out and seek out other resources, because it was just part of the model of care, of including the partner and
because she had stuff for us to learn,
teaching, and making sure you were on it. And I'm such a big advocate for doulas, but for us, I never felt like we needed a doula because of the provider that we had.
Yeah, our circumstances worked out really well.
Yeah, but I think that that's such a great way to find support for partners, is with either a childbirth course that kind of informs people, like the Know Your Options childbirth course.
That's the one.
Shameless plug. Or having a doula or somebody there that's going to be, aware of your needs as well. Mm-hmm. That's me chiming in at the end of your episode.
That's all I've got.
Not
you got
cool.
2 more. You can chime in as often as you need.
So yeah, I'm going to interview Richard again for birth number 2 and 3. And this was so fun. And I told you it was going to be fast. And here we are at probably like 45 minutes. So
there you go. Here's the outro. Thanks again to Richard for sharing. And to Bryn. as we've heard, for sharing. And thanks to you for making this possible. Until next Friday, take care.
Take care.